Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. In this video I'm going over IpIsoft Motion Capture version 4. In my previous video I kind of went over like a brief overview of the pricing information about IpIsoft and it now having a permanent license. In this video I kind of go over a recording that I did when I was talking in that last video and kind of show you some of the quality outputs that you can get from using the software. So I already recorded all of the video for this. So I have the depth. I already did a calibration video. So in my recording, I used the cardboard. I still use the cardboard cutout method. I know that now if you're using the Kinect, you can use the light stick to calibrate the video, in which you use where you can use a flashlight and put it in candlestick mode, and then you do a whole set of movements to calibrate your output. I just went with the cardboard because it's easier and faster, and really from my experience, the cardboard really doesn't make anything any worse or better. It's just faster. I mean, especially if you're using the Kinect for the Xbox One, just look at the point cloud. It just, like if I turn off one of the depth cameras, I really don't see any necessity for using the flashlight. Some people say you get better calibration, but with the cardboard, you really get good calibration already. So everything looks good in this video. I already have everything tracked and calibrated. So it's basically just me going through the motions of calibrating. Usually I go up and down, left and right, then kind of swivel the board side to side, trying to make sure I cover everything as far as getting a good calibration. So the next video I did is my action video. And here I haven't done all of the tracking yet. So basically I just kind of went through the first round of tracking. I haven't done any of the refinement yet. So there's still a lot of jittering that goes along with it. So if you can see it starting off bad, it didn't match completely 100% to my skeleton. With IpIsoft, there's a lot of cleanup that needs to be done. Luckily, within IpIsoft Motion Studio, you can do the cleanup within the software instead of taking it into another different program. So if I turn off the depth information and just play the skeleton, you see there's a lot of jitter. But for the most part, it follows it pretty good. I know in my previous video, I was kind of worried about if I put my limbs together, that it would lose tracking as it get closer to the body. But maybe it's a different now with the new version. But the body limbs, like your arms and legs, it tracks pretty good. Even when the body parts are close together. As you can see in the, as I scroll back a little bit, like while I was walking, even though in the video, you can see that I'm still within the video frame. As far as the depth field, it's losing my arm over here. And as soon as it loses my arm a little bit, it goes a little bit out of control. It loses tracking until it gets back in view. And then it tracks again. So go back a little bit. They're right there. So yeah, you can see it. There's no point cloud there. Even though, so it's probably like right here in this video. Where in the video you can see I still have an arm here. But in this camera here, you can't see anything and there's no depth whatsoever. So it pretty much loses tracking there. And then until I come back into frame, and then it brings my arm back to where it should be. So for the most part, using the IpIsoft with the Kinect cameras for motion capture is pretty good. Again, from what I've seen on the internet and from videos, using the PlayStation cameras or from the new feature that IpIsoft version 4 have, where you can use actual GoPro cameras and other action cameras, you can probably get way better results. Again, the Kinect's only recorded 30 frames a second, where if you can use the action camera to go up to 60 frames a second, I believe. One thing I also noticed is that they do have a new tracking algorithm. Depending on your hardware, this could be really, it can either speed up or slow down your system. I tried using the tracking before, and where either having this checked on or checked off, the tracking time was pretty much still the same. I didn't get faster tracking when I turned it on, but the results were different. I had a lot of bad tracking errors where body parts would stop following the point cloud too closely. And so for my laptop, it was best for me to turn this off. Maybe for my desktop, it would run better since it's more powerful. And this laptop is pretty old. I think I'm rocking a 660M GPU in here. So yeah, I really need to upgrade the laptop, but for my desktop, it would have blew through this. So it probably would have been a good benefit for that. Again, with the Kinect, there is no head tracking. So you can't head track with this thing. You would need to buy motion controllers such as a Wii Remote or the PlayStation Move controllers to add the head tracking to it. And see, I do a little bit of range of motion, and it's losing the tracking of the arm, and a lot of pops, and just a lot of things that need to be cleared up. And one thing I kind of didn't like about IpIsoft is the spine. Is that you get this weird curvature when it comes to it. Like, it's hard to notice when you're inside the software, but like, see how the spine is kind of, but where yet my body, if I pull up the depth, it should go more, it should be more straight than what it is now. And you could really tell the difference once you actually put it in actual 3D package like Maya or 3ds Max or anything where you actually put a real character on it, and then you can see the bending in the spine that you will have to clean up later. I also go over the cleanup for this. I'm using a screen capture to record while it goes through the playback. I know if I use a screen capture while I actually try to do the tracking, it will slow everything down. So I will pause the video while it tracks, and then I come back once the tracking refinement process has been done, and after I do a little bit of jitter removal, and then you could be able to see the results of that. But the tracking on here is pretty good. I mean, I do more than just like walk around here a little bit. Do a span where if you use multiple Kinects, you can do a 360 span. You see the feet are having issues tracking properly, even with the point cloud. Like in the point cloud, you can clearly see my feet, but it doesn't really track that good. So you have to clean that up. There's no wrist tracking, so you have to put your own wrist tracking in there. There's no finger tracking, so you have to put your own finger tracking in that, and no head tracking either. So you have to do head tracking as well as that. Again, comparing this to the HTC Vive, with the Vive controllers and the Vive headset, and with the trackers, you get full foot control, hand and wrist control, and head control. You still don't get finger control, and you have to keyframe that yourself, but it gets you a lot further than just a basic setup using the Kinect. If you go with the camera route with IpIsoft while using the action camera or the PlayStation Eye, the action cameras actually do have head, hand, and foot tracking. So you would be able to get better results if you use that. But like I said, in my previous experience, I really couldn't get the cameras to work good. I don't know if it's my lighting situation or what, because like it's really heavily dependent on the lighting. Like you can see right here, like I'm moving my head around, but the character isn't really moving her head. And again, I turned head tracking off, because if you turn head tracking on with the Kinect and the Kinect does not head track, it'll put the head in weird positions, and it's a bigger headache than just leaving this checked off and then doing the head tracking later. But it's better in body detection now. Go back to this camera. With foot, see there's a little bit of a wiggle with the foot. The knees are pretty good. With the depth camera, as long as you're in front of the camera and there's no clipping in the body, I can't fault the tracking on here. The tracking is great. I still have an issue with the spine and this bending and twisting. Even if I put the spine on stiff lower spine, it still bends and twists in a weird way that you have to go back and clean up later. There's no amount of filtering out there in the software to straighten out that spine. You will just have to go out and straighten it out in post-production, basically, before you render the scene and fix that. So I'm just bending and twisting, just showing range of motion to see if anything loses tracking. Again, I thought they would lose a lot of tracking once the arm goes in front of the body and the point cloud becomes like one field. But I guess with using the Kinect One for the Xbox One, the tracking is much better than with the 360. Because with the 360, then the body would pretty much just lose tracking at that point. Like I haven't done any cleanup in this yet. And like right here, if I hide the body and just use a point cloud, you can see how like the camera on it from the front, so it can still tell that there's two arms there, and the arms look pretty good, that I don't have to go back and try to pull the arms from the body and retract the arms and like refine back, go track back and track forward to try to find that perfect spot before you can start tracking again. A problem with the HTC Vive is that if you don't have enough trackers and you're just relying heavily on the IK system to drive the elbows and the knees, it does a lot of guesswork. Because I use Maya to do that, and so Maya uses a lot of guesswork on where the knee and elbow should be, and sometimes it's good, sometimes it's not. So you have to offset the animation to put the elbows and knees in the correct place. But in IpIsoft, you really don't have to worry about that, because as long as you're in front of the camera, you should be able to track everything besides your head, feet, and wrists. The arm isn't really twisted in a bad way as in previous versions. See, I raised my knee and the knee is in a good position. It's following the point cloud pretty closely. I mean, there's a little bit of foot tracking here, but it's not perfect. Like here, you see the foot is tracking closely to the point cloud, whereas this foot over here is not in the correct position. So I have to go back and clean that up. Then I get down for a push-up. And this is what I was kind of surprised about too. You would kind of think that it wouldn't be able to see you, I'm in the video frame and it can see my body here, but it can still catch my arms in their push-up position, and it still gets my feet. And if you got if you got good, got a good ground detection, then you should get good foot reaction to the ground. So you see my toes are bending in here. Again, the wrists are kind of wobbly, but that's you can clean that up in post, or you can clean it up here if you want to. I think it's kind of a waste of time, depending on what type of software you use, because again, I use Maya. Keep throwing that Maya out there. But in Maya, it has animation layers where I can just go in on one frame, just pick out the wrist and rotate it to the correct position. And then it'll be set that way for the entire duration of this pose, instead of just having to go frame by frame and retrack everything to get it in the correct pose. So it's faster for most of this stuff if you just let it track and clean up the animation itself, and any kind of offsets you need to do, just do that inside of Maya or whatever 3D program you're using. Okay, so next I'm gonna pause the video and I'm gonna do some cleanup here, and then I'll come back and show what the results are after the so basically what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna do a refine forward. Basically it's gonna go through the animation again and just do a better tracking based off the results I already have, and then I'll come back and show you the results of that. And then I'll do a final tracking where I do some jitter removal to get all this wobbly animation out the way. And then I'll show you the results of that as well. All right. Okay, and welcome back. I went ahead and did the tracking cleanup, the jitter removal, and the trajectory filter. I bumped the trajectory up to 2. And for my jitter removal options, let's see, for the head, I bumped it all the way up to 5 because I don't want any head movement in this whatsoever. It already can't capture the head tracking, so there's no reason to get any kind of weird jittering in the head tracking. If there's nothing there, I can always do that post to get the head movement that I want. The legs and the arms, there really wasn't much jitter going on there, just put a little bit of a bump up in that just to make sure everything is all smooth. And with the torso, again, I hate that little weird bending and twisting that it does, so I kind of bump that all the way up for it can be as straight and smooth as possible. And so I went ahead and done that, and I already did the jitter removal process. And for my setup, it took maybe 20 minutes to go through that process. Depending on what kind of setup you have, like if you have like a desktop running a 1080 or something like that, it probably only take a few seconds to run through. So after the jitter removal process, it's pretty much a smooth process now. I'm liking, for the most part, how everything comes out. You see there's a little bit of weird the thing going on with the foot. I tried to set that in place before I did the jitter removal. It fixed it a little bit, but not completely. See, it's not really tracking the feet that well at all. I know I could go back frame by frame and put it on the correct to make sure it lines up properly with the depth with the point cloud to get it to track better, but that would just add more time to the tracking. And honestly, I can get it done faster if I can just take it into Maya, get rid of all the key animation from the feet and just do it by hand. It's just a little bit of offset to that, so that's not really a big deal. As long as I got the major points like floor contact and there was a little hiccup right there. I'm not really sure what that was. So yeah, that I'm gonna have to clean out. And little stuff like that I can just take out when I use Maya or Motion Builder to clean that out. If you don't have that software, Maya or Motion Builder, to clean up animation, I'm not really sure what the cleanup process would be if you would be using Blender or Houdini or 3ds Max. So I will leave that to the experts of that software, of those softwares, to kind of show you how to do that. But compared to the previous video that I was doing where it was unfiltered, this is much better. It's not randomly jumping around or popping. So that's good. Again, like this all can seem kind of deceiving. Like in here with this figure, everything looks good, but once you put it into your animation software, you can see a little bit more of some errors. So one feature that IpIsoft has, this is a new to version 4, but you can import a character to have side by side. And that way you can see like how it looks on an actual character. I'm not sure why when I import this character, the skin is matte like that. I'm not really sure if there's an option where you can change the lighting in here, so you'll be able to see the character better. Hide the skin. Basically, I'm just hiding it, but I just want to see that character, and I'm gonna have it next to the point cloud here, so you can see a better representation of what the point cloud is doing and what the character animation output is. So it's smoother, but it's not as accurate as what I was actually doing. As you can see, like the hands on the point cloud go further out than the arms of the character. The swinging, I don't want to say limpness, but basically the character looks a little bit more stiff than how I'm actually moving around. That could be part of the filtering that I did by setting up the options too high. But if I left it like it was at default, then it'll still have a lot of jitter. The spine will be moving out of control. And I'd rather have this than the jittering mess that I had at first. So, but for the most part, it's still pretty good. So still some things I would have to clean up once I take it outside of IpIsoft. Just go up a little bit more. Like the spinning and everything is good. As far as like the arms and feet towards being closer towards the body. I know in previous versions, like with my arms being this close to my main torso, that the arm tracking would get lost. But so I'm happy to see that that's not the case in this version. And again, as long as you stay in front of the camera, then you shouldn't really have an issue. Let's see if I can find that part on where I lost my arm, or my arm lost tracking in this video. Okay, good. Like right here, like there's no wrist tracking whatsoever. You see I'm rotating my wrist, and this isn't really doing anything with my wrist. So I would have to do that post as well. See, my foot didn't do anything either when I was moving my foot around. So those would be things that I have to hand key, and that's not really a big deal. If I wanted to, I could go back and forth inside IpIsoft to have it track itself, but it would be faster if I can just, like, within Maya, go to this keyframe and just rotate right. If I can just get to that part. Like, with the foot out, I can just go to this frame, and then instead of just tracking each point like that, I can just go to this keyframe, make a frame with my foot this way, go a couple of frames over to here, and put another keyframe, and then I'll have that whole foot animation right there without having to spend another 2 or 3 minutes in tracking that foot just to do that. Just whatever process is your process. I mean, if you want to go in IpIsoft and use it that way, if your computer is faster at tracking where it can go through this entire scene in maybe 2 or 3 minutes, maybe it's worth it to spend a little bit extra time to have that foot tracking done within IpIsoft instead of hand keying it on your own. If you're working on a slower system, it may be a little bit faster to fix little issues yourself instead of having going back and forth with IpIsoft. So there's no issue with the knee placement. Like I said before, if you have an HTC Vive and you have no trackers on your foot, then you would have to do a lot of guesswork. The software you use will use a lot of guesswork on where the knee position would be. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's not. So there'll be cleanup on both systems. There's no way to get around having to do any type of cleanup. Then right here, just seeing some of the range of movement. Like right here, like you can see the way I bend, the curvature in my back, and how limp I am, how lifelike that looks compared to IpIsoft, where his back is pretty much straight. Now again, that could be due to the stiff lower spine that I selected instead of using a flexible spine, but it's like a give or take. If I choose one of these options, maybe I can get the curvature in the back like it should be, but then I would have weird torso movements where, let me see if I can get to a good spot, where there would be times where I had IpIsoft in like right here in this position here. Like the upper part of the torso would be facing this way, the lower torso would be facing this way, and it'd be in some kind of weird S-curve spine because it's so flexible. And then I would have to go and post because there's no jitter removal. There's not enough jitter removal in this software to straighten out this spine so it won't be in a weird way. Even now, like here, compared to me, like, yeah, I have a little dip in my back, but for the way this character is modeled, it shouldn't come in that way. It looks like he got his butt sticking out and his chest out, and I have to fix that. There's no jitter removal, there's no type of cleanup within IpIsoft to clean it out. So it's things like that kind of annoy me with IpIsoft, and that I have to fix once I'm done with this anyway. That when using the HTC Vive, with the trackers, it's tracking the trackers are being tracked, so there's no weird deformation in the spine or the feet or the hands. It's basically one-to-one whatever you do. One thing I did note, I did find out in my Orion video what was happening to the spine. I did have my Kinect cameras set out here as well when I was testing Kinect Orion. And I was, at the time that I was doing that video, I was going to do a side-by-side recording. I was going to record with IpIsoft and Orion running both at the same time to get a one-for-one comparison in the animation so you can see the quality. But apparently the Kinects interfere with the HTC Vive base stations, and that's why I was getting a little bit of a weird animation with the HTC Vive. It looks like the hip was drifting away in that video. So if you go back and watch that video and you see that little error, then that's what that was. And again, like, this is like one of the things I like about IpIsoft, that I'm fascinated about, that even with the point cloud, like, you can see how close my hands are together. I didn't have to go back and forth with the tracking to get my hands in the perfect tracking position. They track them fine, even though they're right there against my body. In previous version of IpIsoft, even if you use a Kinect 360, you will definitely lose arm tracking in that spot. And even in the push-up position, it tracked it pretty good. Again, like I have to go back and clean up the hand. It's not really that hard to just go into Maya and just rotate the wrist for this whole entire motion to be in this proper position, and then use a floor contact for the wrist to make sure they are in contact with the floor and get good animation. So that's not something I would actually worry about. And I'm just looking for that part where I actually lost motion in my hand when I was walking around. Okay, so it's right around here. When I start walking around, at some point the point cloud loses my arm there. IpIsoft does a pretty good job in guessing where the arm should be. But again, I could either hand key it here and go frame by frame to fix that position, or I can just, for those few frames where I lose tracking in my arm, just from here back to here, just fix the arm position. So it's not really something I would spend any significant amount of time within IpIsoft just to clean that one part up. So there are some other things I would still have to fix in here. Once I take it into Maya, I will show the results of that. I had a Kinect Orion rig that I'll be comparing to the IpIsoft version 4 rig. My next video, I will actually be going into the Breckle Open VR recorder, and I'll be showing you how that software works and kind of overview of that and what output you can get from that. And I'm still on the fence on whether I'll be going through Vive Mocap Kit for the Unreal Engine. It's actually giving me a few hiccups using the Unreal Engine for the first time. It's completely new to me, so I'm still trying to learn my way around it. So I may have to wait on that till I have more experience. One more thing before I go. I did test out the live portion of this. I don't have a recording of it because if I try to record the screen capture while I'm doing the recording, my frames drop to like 15 frames a second. So maybe if you have a beefier computer, you could be able to do that with the live streaming. One thing I did notice about that is that it's not really that good of a tracking off the bat. If you ever use Breckle, the free Breckle version is kind of like that, where the limbs are just kind of everywhere, picks up wherever it sees you. Because it's only using one camera, if you turn away from the camera, your arms and legs start going haywire. You can't use multiple Kinects on it. Even if you have 2 Kinect 360s on one system, it won't let you do it. So I don't really see the point of that. I think one suggestion to IpIsoft would be, it would probably be time to combine the recorder and Mocap Studio into one program. I think there's a little bit of more strain on your computer, depending on how powerful it is. If you have 2 softwares up and you're streaming the recording from one software and it has to input the data to Mocap Studio. I believe if it was one program like with Breckle, then you can get much better results. Even when I wasn't doing the screen capture, I think my frames dropped to like 19 or 20. And that, again, just using one Kinect. I've used Breckle Pro Body before, and it gives you pretty good results, but it's just one camera. And I can get a full 30 frames a second with Breckle, but with IpIsoft, I'm getting dropped frames. I'm not sure why. Maybe it's because it's using 2 programs to do one job. But they're still working on that, and it may get better once they release live tracking for multiple cameras. But I just wanted to kind of throw you that information out there. I may try to do a video just to show you what's going on with the live recording. But until then, thank you for watching. Please subscribe, comment below, and have a good day.